That Joel Klatt, the voice of college football for Fox, is joining us live. So I'll ask you the first question I asked Urban. Wrap a bow on it. What is your big takeaway on that game last night?
Yeah, it's very much in line with what you were just talking about. I mean, we can talk about the game specifically, obviously, and what happened and some of the mistakes that were made from Miami's side, namely the blocked punt that really cost them the game. Beck maybe forcing it in double coverage at the end. But then there's the overarching storyline, Colin, which is this is incredible for college football. You know, in the late teens, we were watching Alabama dominate college football. And listen, I love to see people dominate. And watching Nick Saban coach was phenomenal. But, boy, there was an era of inevitability even before the season in early September that we knew it was Clemson and Alabama and maybe Georgia that was going to play for the national title. And now that statement that you just made in that lead up to this interview, why not us? To me, this is the best thing that's happened to college football in a long time. I think that this could be the most consequential national champion in my lifetime watching this sport and loving this sport because of this idea that, listen, we can do this. We are a coach away. We are one transfer portal away. And everybody wants to lament what's happening through NIL and the freedom of movement that these players have in the transfer portal. And listen, I understand that there needs to be some parameters. I totally understand that. However, what it has led to is a golden era now of college football. The product has never been better, and there's never been more parity. And now Indiana is winning a national championship after coming into the season as the program with the most losses in the history of the sport. To me, it's remarkable, it's profound, and only history we'll look back on this with the size and momentum and scope that it deserves, because I think right now we're probably too close to it.
Yeah, I said it felt 30 to 40% NFL, and that's not a bad thing. I always said I love college football, but special teams were a circus, even on good teams, that it was flawed, and it was 19-year-olds, and 19-year-olds make mistakes. But now kids are like, I really like playing at Indiana. I like playing at Ohio State. I'm going to stay here for one more year. I think the offenses have gotten more sophisticated. I think the coaching's better. I mean, Miami's O&D lines look like Sunday lines.
Yeah.
Is that, Joe, I think the game needed a little bit of an NFL vibe. We needed a playoff. We needed to play the players. The rosters now by design are a little older. I think the quality last night of the play calling, man, half the defense, zone the other. Like, I watched that game and I'm like, oh, this is really high-end football. That was my takeaway.
You bring up a really good point, and in particular with the older and more experienced players and obviously a quarterback, but more so on defense. And here's what it's done to college football is that it's taken away the really simple offenses that just allow an athletic quarterback to go run around and make plays, which is what college football was for a while. Let's face it, right? Because it was just talented young kids that were out there, and the most talented kid would win. And now there's more schematics involved and strategy involved and situational football involved. So I think the necessity of having a veteran quarterback is ramped up. And we're starting to see that now year after year. And these defenses become more intricate and they can stop more things. So you have to have answers as an offense. That's what we saw. So think about this. Miami is killing Indiana with their pass rush, and they were. Bain and Mesidor were fantastic. Those are Sunday players, first-round players in particular in Bain's case. And yet, Indiana had answers. They ran the football, 39 times for over 139? So they lean into the run game. They get Mendoza out of the pocket. They start throwing it short. And then in crunch time, what do? They go to matchups. That's what's NFL. They say, hey, Charlie Becker has got the matchup that we like, and we're going to go to him on the back shoulder on 4th down, on 3rd down, and then Mendoza runs the quarterback draw. That's what felt NFL to me, is the matchup-oriented situational calls that we got from offensive coordinator Mike Shanahan in Indiana. Going to Charlie Becker in those big moments, you know, that's what we see in the NFL playoffs. It's about players and not plays, and that's what ultimately won the game for Indiana.
You know, people can talk about Big Ten against the SEC, and they've won 3 straight natties. If I was an SEC fan, here's what worries me: Miami and Notre Dame. Because you look at the ACC and you're like, well, those guys. Oh, no. Maybe the 2 best recruiting head coaches now out there. big checkbooks. In Miami's case, hyper aggressive with the portal and the NIL. Cristobal also has, I mean, at Oregon, he built good teams. He didn't have Dade and Broward County in the state of Oregon. I look at Miami, Joel, I mean, they are absolutely the second best team in the country after Indiana. I'd argue in the second half, they were almost a better team, if not for a block punt. I think Miami and Notre Dame, and maybe Miami specifically, I'm sorry, but Cristobal recruiting, that county, that NIL checkbook, I think Miami is back with a vengeance. I wouldn't be shocked if they bought Duke's quarterback and we're back here next year.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's the rumors that Mensa, Duke's quarterback, is going to go down to Miami. Now, listen, they do have to replace a lot. They're probably going to have to replace 4 offensive linemen, and that was a trenches-led team. They're likely going to have to replace a bunch of their defense, including down the middle with their linebackers and some of those guys up front. But they're still going to have Malachi Toney. They can still get I would say, a veteran quality quarterback. So they will be good because of the way that they've built their roster year over year. There's no doubt. And Mario Cristobal, I think, proved a lot of people wrong, including myself. I didn't know if Mario Cristobal could win big games in November, much less the playoff, and they proved that they could do that. And so that's a huge feather in their cap. You're absolutely right about Notre Dame, and they're reloading with a great young quarterback that will now be a veteran in C.J. Carr, and they've got 2 wide receivers back. They went out and got Quincy Porter out of the portal from Ohio State, who was a 5-star wide receiver. Notre Dame should be very good. And here's what I'm about to record, and will be coming out later this week on the Joel Klatt Show, my way too early top 10 for next year. And it's very difficult to get even 3 SEC teams in that top 10.
I was just doing that. Listen to this, Joel. I'll give it to you here. So I said next year, because Miami's going to reload. They're going to go buy an offensive line. That's what they're going to do. I look at Miami, Notre Dame's 2, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana 3, 2 cupcakes automatic. Texas Tech's going to buy teams. Sorry. I'm at 8. I'm not counting USC, Michigan, which could get in. Clemson will be feisty. I mean, everybody says, oh, well, Texas, I'll give you $40 million roster. Joel, I look at 8 teams. I would be shocked if they didn't get in before I get to the SEC.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen. So you basically have 1 spot left. If let's say we would include Texas, and I will include Texas.
Absolutely.
Well, then you get down to this conversation about kind of the last spot in a potential top 10 going into next year, and you've got teams like LSU, USC, A&M, BYU, who is bringing back a
Michigan,
Oklahoma. And here's the best part about it is that any one of those teams might turn out to be the best team. You know, I don't think we're going to have a runaway number 1 team, although Oregon looks like a team that could potentially wind up number 1 in the preseason, in particular with Dante Moore back. Again, we go back to the veteran presence at quarterback. You bring him and all of his starts back and some of that talent. College football is in such a good spot, man. And I'm telling you, like I said, I'm going to go back to this again. I think last night was the most consequential national champion in my life. I'm 43 years old. I cannot remember a time in college football where we needed this more than what we have right now, because every fan base in America can wake up this morning and say, well, heck, why can't we do that? You know, we're seeing it with Tech, and Oregon invests, LSU is investing, Ole Miss is investing, Notre Dame is investing, Clemson's everybody is investing, and they can all play at the top end. And that's how you get a championship game that is that high a level between 2 teams that ultimately at the beginning of the year we didn't expect to be there.
All right, Klatt, you got a lot of stuff to do. You're a very, very busy guy. You're pod smoking and all that stuff. And you know what? It's not, I know you don't like this.
Let me ask you real quick. I know you probably need to go. Just really quickly.
All right.
Best coaching job you've ever seen? I think I think Curt Cignetti, what he's done is the single greatest coaching job I've ever seen in any sport.
I thought Brad Stevens at Butler, had he won the title, I was like, how is Butler playing for a title?
That's a good one. That's a really good one.
And by the way, brilliant guy now, coach and now GM. I would say Brad Stevens at Butler is like, this doesn't make any sense. But that was also kind of a time when college basketball was one and done, so the rosters weren't stacked. You didn't get old rosters.
And also in basketball, you need one great player.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like you're building, in football, Indiana was great across the board. there wasn't a weakness on that team. It ultimately won them a national championship. I'm not disagreeing. I think Stevens is a great call there. You know, you think of, I thought of like Herb Brooks, but that's one tournament with the Miracle on Ice. You know, I can't think of, certainly in college football, there's probably, you know, Nick Saban's the greatest coach of all time. But as far as a single performance and a couple of years, there's no rival to what Cignetti is doing and has done.
You know, I've said this for years. I grew up with college football, so I've always loved it. We both love it. But there was always 2 or 3 flaws to college football. The ending. And I always felt like our bosses and other big broadcast executives are always like, if we could just get the ending to be a playoff, okay, we'll put a couple of cupcakes in so we don't get sued, but let's have a playoff. So they've solved the playoff thing. And the other thing was, it always felt a little regional to me. It's not regional. I got flashy Miami. I got basketball school, Indiana. I got a billionaire at Texas Tech. I got an academic power in Notre Dame. I've got 2 great conferences. Like, to me, it's like, okay, this is like the NFL. I can get a small market Green Bay. I can get LA. You know, it's like, this is the way football should be. You just don't, you said it earlier. It used to be in the preseason, you could look at the Street and Smith depth charts and you were like, well, Bama's in for sure. And so is LSU. You can't 100%. Do that anymore.
No, you really can't. And that's why this is, I think we're entering what is going to be a real golden age of the sport. I think we're entering what will likely be considered and history will look back on as the best period of college football ever.
Hey, I want to show you, I want to ask you, can we roll the Fernando Mendoza run for a touchdown?
Oh, how good was that? Now,
Tell me,
Colin, I grew up in Denver, so this reminded me of Super Bowl 32 as John Elway is running and then helicoptering around inside the 10-yard line against Green Bay. Like, that's what it reminded me of. This effort was incredible.
And did it also not remind you a little of Andrew Luck?
Sure.
Who, by the way, has said publicly, I don't feel like the game starts until I get popped. Mendoza, similarly this year, he doesn't have like a mean streak in him, but he does get a little, you know, like when the lip is bleeding against Ohio State, against Miami. Now he's not Andrew Luck as a prospect. I'm not saying he's Elway or Andrew Luck, but there are qualities, the humility, the toughness, you know, obviously great parenting, an amazing story. There are some things about Mendoza where I'm like, man, there's a little Luck in Elway. He's not that. By the way, we have a shot of his bruised arm last night. I haven't seen this.
So good.
If you haven't seen, Lord.
So good. You know, there are 2 types of quarterbacks.
That screams.
And there are quarterbacks that rise to the occasion when their best is needed. And there are guys that shrink.
Look at that.
And Mendoza rose to the occasion. When his best was needed, he was at his best. That's why he won the Heisman, and that's why he's a national champ.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoy that clip, make sure you click subscribe somewhere down here. From game highlights to exclusive interviews and rankings, we've got everything you need as a college football fan right here, College Football on Fox.